certain extent, Lisa Nandy is right. The tone of this debate has been terrible, but that's probably about where my agreement with her stops, because the reason the tone of this debate has been so bad is that the trans activist side seems to have decided that it didn't have to do any of the usual persuading, marshalling evidence, arguing phases of bringing about what is, on any view, seismic social and cultural change. They decided that all they had to do was assert a new reality. Trans women are women, trans men are men. And everyone's got to agree with that. Everyone's got to accept it in all circumstances, for all purposes. And anyone who expresses any concerns about that is to be smeared as a bigot, and can be deplatformed, silenced. It's okay to try to get them sacked from their jobs, and worse. There have been rape threats, death threats, threats of horrible violence against women expressing these opinions. So it's absolutely true that the tone has been bad, but the tone has been bad because one side decided that this wasn't a matter that we needed to debate at all. They could just lay down the law. When I first came to this debate, I was perfectly happy to call men who said they were women, trans women, including the all-important space, to use female pronouns for them, to call them she and her, and to engage in what I thought we all understood was a polite pretense that for social purposes they were women. And that, with me, has broken down over the last few years, because I've come to understand that there is no consensus that this is a polite pretense. There is a much more radical claim that this is the truth, that trans women are in reality women.
So your view is that sort of, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. If you keep up with this, as you say, it's polite pretense that someone is a woman, that it will be sliding into sort of legal territory, or it will be sliding into the territory of these trans women being put into female prisons or refuges or something. Is it about holding a linguistic line that can't be breached?
The language is a front in this fight that has been very, very bitterly fought over and bitterly defended. And I think that I now understand, and this is something that I didn't understand only a few years ago, but I now understand very vividly why it is such an important front. Because if we are not allowed to say he, if we're not allowed to say that a male athlete, a male swimmer, a male runner, whatever, is male, and that's the problem with him competing in women's sport, because that he has a male body. If we're not allowed to use that realistic language, it becomes very, very hard to say what the problem is. So if you want to exclude someone you call she, and you're referred to as a trans woman from what ought to be a women-only space, you fall over yourself. You can't make clear what your problem with that is. And your problem with that is that trans women are men. And if there is a good reason to have a women-only space, like a women's prison, or any of the spaces where women undress or use the toilet or are vulnerable for any reason, sleeping, whatever. And those are not just, Labour politicians particularly have a great tendency to talk about safe spaces as if this is all about safety. But it's not. It's it's just as much about everyday privacy and dignity. Women have the right to their own boundaries. And in those circumstances, in all of those many, many situations that we all encounter daily, when for our own privacy and dignity and for the maintenance of our own boundaries, we want to say this is a women-only space. What matters there is not how somebody identifies, but what their body is like, whether they are in fact a man or a woman. And trans women are in fact men, and we need to be able to say that.